Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining Leader Dogs for the Blind's resource sharing collaboration events. My name is Alyssa Otis. I am a guide dog mobility instructor as well as the outreach specialist at Leader Dogs for the Blind. Our collaboration events are an opportunity to spotlight other organizations within that blindness and low vision field to really learn about services that they provide. And while LeaderDog has many programs and services to offer, there are numerous other organizations that can be of great benefit to many. So we hold collaboration events the last Wednesday of every other month at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard, and everyone is welcome to join. During this webinar, you can expect to first hear from our partnering organization, followed by some information about LeaderDog programs and services. And of course, we will wrap up with time for questions and answers. So feel free to pop any questions into the chat at any point, and we will be sure to address them at the end. I also mentioned that everybody here is muted and you cannot turn on your videos at this point, but at the very end, I will make sure to change those permissions. So, a little bit about our guest today. I know everyone's pretty excited. We have Deborah Erickson here. She is the executive chef and founder of The Blind Kitchen. That's a web-based business that provides adaptive culinary tools and cooking strategies for people with vision loss who want to cook safely, confidently, and independently in their own kitchens. She herself is blind due to retinitis pigmentosa and was the only blind student in culinary school. She has also been a vocational rehab instructor and taught cooking to legally blind adults at the Oregon Commission for the Blind. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to her.
Hello. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate being able to talk about something I'm so passionate about. Um, I'm going to go ahead and frame the beginning of the talk, and I certainly am going to welcome any questions. And I'd like actually the questions to kind of guide the discussion because the things that are important to me may not be as important to you who are listening. The first thing I want to talk about are the three fears related to cooking with vision loss. The first is fear of cutting yourself. The second is of burning yourself. And the third is fear of embarrassing yourself, either by being a messy cook or um, having a bad presentation of your food, or perhaps worrying, being embarrassed that you might kill somebody because you undercooked the food. That would be the worst embarrassment. But so those are usually what I hear and have faced myself when learning to cook with vision loss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a tool and a strategy. That's what you'll find at the Blind Kitchen. There is a lot of free information out there. Not every cooking problem is solved by buying a tool. There are a lot that it's just specialized knowledge or strategy that you may never have thought about, but it's always existed. So let's start with the fear of cutting yourself. Um, that's a realistic fear. And when I could see, I cut myself plenty of times. Everybody cuts themselves. But the truth is, what I found is people with vision loss tend to cut themselves less because we're much more mindful of and paying closer attention. We're not glancing over at the TV or generally get involved in an intense conversation. We're paying attention to what we're doing. But there is a tool out there that I think every person should have, and it's called a cut glove. And it's a thin glove. It's relatively thin. You can't read Braille through it, but it's a little bit stretchy and it's a weave. And when you put it on your hand that's holding the food, because the hand holding the knife is not in danger. It's the hand holding the food that's in danger because the other one has the fingers safely holding the handle or pinching the spine of the knife. So those fingers are okay. But I've done this often in presentations where I'll hold my palm straight upwards, so it's parallel to the ceiling. I'll be wearing that cut glove, and I'll have a very sharp chef knife in my hand, and I run it back and forth across my palm. I can feel the pressure. I know that something is running back and forth and something thin, but it never cuts through the glove. It can't. They're cut resistant. Now, if I was cutting a carrot or if I were cutting a potato or something like that, and I had that hand wearing the glove that's holding the food, if I'm cutting, and all of a sudden I feel pressure on the hand holding the food that I don't expect to feel, I'm just going to stop. I, but if I had not been wearing that glove, then by the time my brain got the information that something had come in contact with one of my fingers or my thumb, I would already be cut before the brain gets that information. So the cut gloves gives you that extra second layer of protection. The other place where it's absolutely usable and I use it all the time is when I'm grading something, because box graders are weird, but they're very helpful. They're great tools, but they have weird angled sides and a lot of different kinds of blades on them. And I don't know of any cook that has not left their knuckle skin in some cheese or potatoes or carrots that they're grating. So this glove, it's the same principle. Now my dominant hand is going to be the hand holding the food, and I'm running it down the box grater. And once again, if I feel a snag or pressure when I don't expect to make contact, I'm just going to stop. And it's really invaluable for that, whether you can see or not. So that's just one of the tools that's very helpful for cutting. Now, I'll talk about another tool when you're cooking or about burning yourself, is we have these things called heat gloves. You may have heard of them. They're marketed as of gloves, but there are a lot of really good knockoffs that are not even close to as expensive that do a fabulous job. And they are made of cotton, and they have four fingers and a thumb. So you've got that tactile flexibility of being able to move your fingers that you don't have if you're in a quilted mitten or if you're behind a rectangle, heavily quilted uh, panhandler. So those are good. Those old-fashioned ones that are heavily quilted for excellent protection against heat, but they don't give you a whole lot of flexibility or tactile information. You kind of just got to do the best you can to get it out and hold it. With the gloves, the heat gloves found in the blind kitchen, they only have two layers of cotton. That's not enough to protect your hands against a large amount of heat. But what they do have are silicone designs printed all over them, the front and the back, so they're ambidextrous. And those provide protection against heat and also a non-slip protection. So if that pan is not oily on the outside or anything like that, when I commit to picking that pan up, I'm going to have help holding it. It's not going to slide out of a smooth cotton lining. It's going to be much more likely to stick to where that is. So that is another good thing to have. So so let's go to the fear of embarrassing yourself. And in terms of embarrassing yourself with being a messy cook, there are a lot of different strategies to do this, but one of the tools that is probably the one I most use in the blind kitchen, in my kitchen at home all the time, is a work tray. And these come with a light colored tray and a dark colored tray. You get a set of two. So if you do have some contrast available to you, you can choose the tray that's going to give you that much more contrast. And I use them as cutting boards. And the reason they work so well is they have slightly sloped sides. They're made of a heavy duty plastic, and you've seen them probably in schools and hospitals. They're basically cafeteria trays. But when you go to cut something, we talk about that carrot I was cutting, which has tendency to roll, or let's say I'm measuring some wet liquids and I accidentally knock over a container. So instead of that liquid running across my counter, down the front of my cupboards, onto the floor, and now I've got a big mess to clean up, chances are that spill is going to be contained in that work tray. And the sides aren't high enough to really interfere in the work you're doing, but they're high enough to help contain the food that you're doing. And I use those for a cutting board all the time. I don't even I do own a wooden cutting board, but I use it as a trivet for my heavier pans. I use the cutting boards exclusive or the work trays exclusively. Now, the other thing that another fear is that, so one is that you're going to look like a messy cook. That's just one that'll help you not look that, be embarrassed by that. The other is the fear of your presentations. There are so many ways to make your presentations attractive. And the one I'll talk about right now is a simple ice cream scoop. They sell them in like 40 different sizes. The biggest one I've seen is 8 ounces, so that's a full cup. And they have really tiny ones like that, the pink, your little fingertip could barely fit in it. And they're used in commercial kitchens so that when the customers, first of all, get attractively served foods, and that if I go into a restaurant and my dining partner gets a bigger scoop of mashed potatoes or rice than I do, and we're paying the same amount for our plates, I'm not going to be happy. So that's how they help control costs and also make the presentations attractive. So if I'm serving rice and I want it to look nice, I'll just use my 6-inch scoop and I'll scoop out the rice and I'll pack it in there, make sure it's flat. And then I scoop it out. And now I've got this beautiful little dome of rice that I can sprinkle fresh herbs on or nuts or cheese. And it's going to be, each plate's going to look the same and it's going to be very attractive. So that's another tool. And then one of the biggest fears of cooking with vision loss is undercooking food, that somehow you're going to make your family or friends sick. And there is a talking thermometer on the market. So that way, they'll say in cookbooks, oh, cook it until the juices run clear, or cook it until it's no longer pink. We don't have access to that information. And so what we do is we take that talking thermometer, put it in the thickest part of the meat, which is nearest the bone, which will be the last part to cook. And then you just press a button, and in a loud, clear voice, it'll tell you exactly what's happening inside that meat. So those are 4 or 5 of the more than 90 tools available in the Blind Kitchen. So I would like to stop talking for right now, and I would love to hear if people have any questions or thoughts.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. How can a talking thermometer help with hamburger meat? I do not see pink. My wife always tell me the meat is not done.
So hamburger is not going to be something you really need to be afraid of, because people order medium rare steaks and you can order medium rare beef and pinkness isn't going to hurt you, as opposed to you'll never get medium rare chicken. It just isn't going to happen. So, but it's what it is that pink has a temperature, just like the outer part of it that's probably brown has a different temperature because they're cooked to different degrees. Work with your wife to for her to say, this is what I want the meat to look like when I go to eat it, because everybody has a different preference. There's no wrong answer. And then find out what the temperature that is. And then you can continually assess it while it's cooking. And remember, there's carryover cooking, that it's going to cook a little bit longer after you take it out of the pan, depending how thick the cut of meat is. So maybe if she says, oh, I want it 140 degrees, when it starts getting to 138, 137, you might want to remove it for the pan. But and it's not an exact science per se, but that'll give you you've just got to figure out what temperature that meat needs to be to please you and your wife. Does that make sense?
I think that covers it.
Okay.
Let me see. I had one person also that just said, can you please talk about these spices and herbs containers?
The spice and herb container?
Yes, if you have anything for spices and herb containers.
Oh, I assume they're talking about labeling.
Potentially.
Okay, okay. Go ahead and write the question in again if I'm off track with thinking that you're asking about labeling. So there are about 12 right answers to labeling, and it depends on your budget. It depends on your comfort with technology, and it depends on a lot of different things. So labeling spices and containers, I know only 10% of people with vision loss read Braille. So Braille is an obvious answer, but most of us can't. I do read Braille, but I'm painfully slow. But you can use things like a pen friend. And we don't sell those in the Blind Kitchen, but you can get those. And what it is, it's a pen that comes with all these little stickers and stuff, and you can put that sticker on your rosemary bottle, and then you can take the pen and press a button and then record in your own voice, this is rosemary. And then you stop the recording. And then every time from then on, if you take that pen, friend, you go back and you touch the lid of the rosemary jar, it's going to read to you, the pen will, in your own voice, rosemary, oregano, basil. And so that's a real, if you use the bigger stickers and put them on the tops of the lids of the bottles, I have mine in a little pull-out drawer. All I have to do is, I've got a little bit of organization to them, like this drawer has more dessert spices, this drawer has my most used spices, and then the drawer underneath has the spices that begin with C. There are so many spices that begin with C, if you ever wondered. But then I can just run that pen friend over the top of it, and it makes it a real quick. Other ways of labeling is the way around system. These are labels that you purchase on wayaround.com, and they use an app that works with both Android and iOS that you can program. You can type in what you want to say or dictate, like rosemary, and then every time when you open that app, if you've programmed rosemary to that way around tag, when you hold your phone close to it, because it works, it has to be very, very close to it, it will read in a robotic voice whatever you program that to be. And I am barely touching the potential of the way around system. They have like 7 different kinds of labels, and they're very blind friendly with their video tutorials and stuff like that. So another thing I use in my kitchen for labeling is I often use salt, pepper, onion powder, and garlic powder. And so for my salt, I've got these little glass containers. We do some in the Blind Kitchen, but you use whatever system you want. My salt top is smooth, the lid. On my pepper cellar, I've got a prickly sticker. So pepper, prickly, salt, smooth. Then for the onion powder, or for the garlic powder, I put one bump dot on it. I put one bump dot on it. And that way, whenever I'm at my stove, when I touch it, and there's only one bump dot on it, I know that's definitely garlic powder. Because it's, and you might ask why? Well, because it has only one ingredient. But then go to the onion powder, that also only has one ingredient. But I put 2 bump dots on it because it has 2 O's in its name. So you've got to assign meaning to your bump dots, your rubber bands that you might put around a jar. But there are a lot of different ways.
Fantastic. Let's see. I know you said you like to go off of what people are interested in here. So I did get a response on is it glass containers for spices? Do you generally go plastic containers for the spice container themselves?
Yeah, good question. I don't really have a preference. The only thing I would say with vision loss, glass can break when you drop it, but most of us aren't dropping things all over the kitchen. It's just not something that generally happens if you're a mature cook and you're relatively careful. So the other thing would be weight. Glass is heavier than plastic, so that might be a consideration, but I don't think as long as it seals airtight so it doesn't stale, you're I think it's half a dozen of one and 6 of the other.
Fantastic. Let's see. When working with students, what is a dish that we can convince parents to start with in the kitchen that might be easy for somebody who is blind or low vision?
That is an excellent question. Um, if I were, the first thing I would do is when I'd have a student in, and a lot of them were recent high school graduates because they were all adults. They had never used an oven, and we would bake bacon in the oven, a whole pound of it. So that's one way to go. But a lot of people don't eat pork, and if people didn't eat pork, I'd have them bake veggie burgers in the oven. The idea is just to learn the anatomy of the oven, and then while it's cold, and then go ahead and practice putting the food in and out of the oven while it's still cold, so they get the concept. So another really good thing that if you want your student to participate in family meal preparation is something called the locking lid pan. And what it does, it's for pasta or potatoes, which are commonly cooked in American kitchens. Um, and the lid literally locks on top of it. So you turn these little funny handles, and you can actually, the handle in the center of the lid, you can lift it straight up, and the pan will come up with it. Because carrying a, a, a a pan of pasta or potatoes to over to a sink to drain it. You may have your colander in the sink. But it's going to be a guessing game at best, a calculated guess, because you can't lift that heavy pan of pasta or potatoes with one hand and then check with the other hand where it is. So the thing is, this pan locks it on, and it has a ingenious straining system. So when the child or the adult carries this pan over to the sink, no strainer needed, you just tip the pan away from you, and it allows the water to drain, and the food is trapped in the pan, and the lid is trapped on top. That is a real good. So students can go on to learn to do more things with heat and higher risk, but that's a real good start where a parent would say, "Oh, they can do this. Yeah, I trust that." So that's one answer or two answers for that question.
Fantastic. Now, we are getting truthfully so many questions right now. So I just wanted to make sure, is there anything else that you wanted to go over outside of questions? If not, I might just jump into that leader dog real quick so we can get back to all these questions because they are coming in like fire here.
I love that. Nope, that I want the questions. Yeah,
Okay, perfect. Well, then, if you don't mind, I'm going to step in real quick, just do a mini version of our leader dog presentation, and then we will be right back to all of the questions. All right, everybody. Let's go ahead and spotlight myself here for you all. Okie dokie. Okay, so like I said, I am going to try and kind of speed through this. I know some of this is going to be kind of a review for those of you that are very familiar with Leader Dog, but we always like to talk about it. So on the screen, I do have a presentation. I will make sure, of course, to describe all of the photos on the screen, though. So Leader Dogs for the Blind, our mission is to empower people who are blind or visually impaired with lifelong skills for safe and independent daily travel. We are a nonprofit located in Rochester Hills, Michigan, and we have been here since 1939. We are working every day towards our mission, whether that be with one of our programs, with a guide dog, or with a white cane. So who can we serve? We are very lucky to be completely philanthropically funded, so we don't get any money from insurance companies, the government, so we really get to kind of make up our own rules. So with that being said, we don't have any vocational goals, so you don't have to want to get back into that workforce in order to receive services from us. We also have no upper age restrictions, so we are working with individuals from the high school age all the way up until their, 80s, 90s, even into their hundreds. As long as people are out wanting to walk and needing that mobility aid, we can help with that. There's also no limit to the number of service hours. So whether that means you're getting services elsewhere or you want to come to Leader Dog many times over, you are more than welcome to do that. We never cut you at a certain cap of you've had 50 hours of instruction, you don't get any more. So we like to keep that open and help people for truly their entire lifetime. And then we also have no formal referral necessary. So we don't need a prescription for a white cane or anything from your doctor or your O&M specialist. As long as you want our services, you are more than welcome to apply for them. So our main programs, we have our guide dog program. On the screen, there's a little icon next to our guide dog program, which is orange, and it is the side profile of a dog in harness. We also have our orientation and mobility program, and the icon here is a blue stick figure gentleman walking with a white cane. And then also we have our teen summer camp, and the little icon there is a little tent in green that you would have while you were out camping. So we have a few different guide dog options. So first is our on-campus option. So this takes place on campus in Rochester Hills, Michigan, and it is a 3-week class. This is time for you to come and meet your guide dog that you are going to be working with over those 3 weeks and beyond. You really get to focus on you and the dog because all of those worries about being at home doing your laundry at home, getting people ready for school or soccer practice. Those are not worries of yours. You are just focused on that guide dog. And of course, our residence building is fantastic. We have 30 bedrooms. Everyone has their own mini fridge and their own bathroom. They have a door to the outside as well as a front door. We have a workout facility, a kitchen staff that can accommodate any diet or preference. I personally don't like tomatoes. They don't give me stuff with tomatoes. We also, though, understand that not everybody can come onto campus or leave work for 3 weeks potentially. Maybe there's a health concern or they're a primary caretaker for somebody at their home. So we can also do an in-home delivery. So for those unable to come onto campus, we can bring a dog to your home. This program is about 10 days long. So it's a lot shorter because we are working in your home environment one-on-one with an instructor. And then we have our flex program, kind of the best of both worlds. So we are coming onto campus in Rochester Hills for 1 to 2 weeks, and then we are going home with an instructor for that final week to kind of talk about and work on things in your home environment specifically. We also have a deaf-blind and adaptive services team that works specifically with individuals who are either deaf-blind or have additional needs. And we also now are able to work with individuals where Spanish is their first language. So for our deaf, blind, and adaptive services team, we actually have instructors that are certified in American Sign Language and interpreting. So a lot of the instruction is coming directly from your instructor. That's true for some of our Spanish instructors as well. However, we also use interpreters for that program. Next is our O&M options. So we have a 1 week long orientation and mobility program. Generally, it happens on campus, but again, we do understand that not everybody can come to campus, and we can send somebody out to help in somebody else's home environment as well. So for our orientation and mobility, we kind of separate it into a few different groups, although it all falls under that O&M umbrella. So for our program, you are getting a one-on-one instruction for 1 week to work on whatever skills you need to work on. This generally equates to about 25 to 35 hours of direct instruction. And we have this split up into a few different categories. So first is our introduction to O&M. That might be for somebody that has never used a white cane before. Maybe they want to get fitted for one. We can measure and size somebody for it, give you a white cane, teach you how to change the cane tips, talk about cane etiquette, and just go over some basics. We also have O&M brush up. So this is for somebody, maybe they've been a longtime guide dog user and now they want to go back to using that cane and some of their skills have changed or they've lost some. Maybe it's for somebody whose vision has changed or their environment has changed and they just need a little bit of brush up on those skills that they had already known. We also have O&M for guide dog readiness. So this is really a program focused on individuals that have a guide dog as their end goal and how can we get your skills up to where they need to be independently so that you can be more successful or have a better chance of success with a guide dog. And then we have advanced O&M, and this is for individuals, maybe they travel to unknown environments a lot, or they want to take a lot of different public transportation or incorporate technology into their travel. They would fall into that category. And one of the best things about one of the best of many things about our orientation and mobility program is you do not have to want a guide dog in order to come to Leader Dog for orientation and mobility. Next, we have teen O&M. So on the screen here, we have a photo of, we have 3 teenagers all standing with their white canes. And then behind them, we have some orientation and mobility specialists, as well as some support people that the teen brought. So there is a little bit of a difference between teen orientation and mobility and our regular orientation and mobility program. Teen O&M is for high school age students. Generally, we like individuals to have finished 1 year of high school or be at least returning to 1 year of high school in order to come to this teen O&M program. However, if you are unsure if this is right for you or somebody you know, you can always call us and we can talk through it. So the difference between teen O&M and our regular orientation and mobility program is for this, the teenager gets to bring a support person. So we kind of have 2 separate tracks, one for the teenager who's working on those O&M skills, and then one for that supporter on how can I best support my team, or my teen rather. What can I do to kind of allow them to travel more independently? Maybe what am I doing to hinder that? So we have done this now, I believe, for 2 years, and people just absolutely love it. Our last program I want to talk about is our teen summer camp. So the photo on here has probably about 15 to 20 16 and 17-year-olds. Half of them are kneeling on the ground, half of them are standing, most are holding white canes, and they are under a large tree outside. And this is a teen summer camp. This is our only state licensed program. So you do have to be 16 or 17 during the week of camp. But this is different than our other teen program, which was our teen orientation and mobility, in the fact that this says teen summer camp and it is teen summer camp. So it is just our 16 and 17-year-olds come onto our property in Rochester Hills and just absolutely cause havoc and take over. And it is the most fun week. We are doing things such as rock wall climbing. We go canoeing and we do ropes courses. We've done a zombie apocalypse the past few years, which people have loved, team members included. We get dressed up and involved. So it is just an absolutely fantastic camp, and that usually takes place that last week in June. Next, I have our virtual learning resources. So on the screen, we've got kind of 4 different segments: prospective clients, graduates, family and friends, and blind rehab professionals. Our prospective clients has a photo of a woman wearing a face mask, circa 2020, and it has a white cane next to her. And here you can find testimonials of people that have come to our services. You can see a campus tour of our facility. We have descriptive yoga, and we are trying to update those as well. If you ever have any ideas of what you want to see, feel free to let us know. Our graduate section has a photo of one of our grads sitting, smiling at the camera, and next to her is her yellow lab in harness. And here we have really good resources such as things to think about once you are home working your dog. What if the weather is really cold or really hot? What if I need to travel and not take my dog somewhere? As well as resources on how to connect to other alumni. We have a family and friends section, and there we have a photo of 4 individuals sitting on a couch, one young girl sitting in front with a yellow lab and a black lab on either side of her. Here we have different testimonials from family members of how to assist somebody once they come home from travel. What are some things you can do to get your house ready if your loved one is coming home with a guide dog? And then also we have a section for blind rehab professionals. The photo here is an orientation and mobility specialist under blindfold with 2 guide dog mobility instructors next to her doing a dog walk. And here's just a really good place for blind rehab professionals to get continuing education credits for free. And then the last thing that I'm going to talk about is our podcast. So on the screen is our podcast logo. We have a golden retriever, a German shepherd, and Labrador retriever all wearing big sound booth headphones. And it says taking the lead underneath it, underlined by a long white cane. And these come out every other Thursday. And we talk to many different individuals in the blindness and low vision field. We talk to team members, we talk to clients, to volunteers. And you can find this anywhere podcast stream. Right now, we are getting ready to start a new season, but we are still on a little bit of a break. So that will be starting up soon. So I know I threw a lot of information at you all very quickly here, but that is because I wanted to make sure that we had time to get back to Deborah. So I am going to spotlight her again, and I will go ahead and ask some of those fantastic questions from the chat. Oh, you are right there. Fantastic. So we have, like I said, many, many questions for you here. Somebody wanted clarification. So with that hamburger meat, they said, what about with loose hamburger? Is anything different?
Yeah, loose hamburger, like if you're doing ground beef. But by the way, there is a really detailed video on our website about how to do ground meat. And there's some tips. But in terms of safety, even if you're doing ground chicken or ground turkey, your talking thermometer isn't going to help you. The meat pieces are too small. If you've done it right, they're too small. So as long as we're talking ground beef, I'll take this opportunity to say there are pans out there that are called shallow saute pans, and they're round just like regular pans made of different materials. But what makes them different and very blind friendly is they have walls that go straight up. I consider sloped walled pans off ramps for foods, especially small pieces like that. But if it's more like hitting a wall, so if you're doing things with small pieces of meat, that's a good investment for you, and it helps the food stay in the pan and gives you more confidence, and you can move a little more quickly, which is moving quickly is always a dream if you're cooking with vision loss. I'm very slow, but if I can find ways to speed things up, I do. Oh, and the
Fantastic.
other thing about that is if you're cooking, usually we don't just eat ground beef by itself or
Mhm.
ground turkey, you're usually going to make chili out of it or tacos or spaghetti sauce or something out of it. So it'll cook further generally in the sauce, which should further ease your mind that you are indeed not feeding your family raw poultry if you're cooking it further even.
Fantastic. Do you use a barcode reader at all to organize your kitchen?
They exist out there. There's one called the ID Mate. In fact, they just stopped making them and supporting them. Uh, there are some apps that do that. Seeing AI has one, I think it is, but it um, you could use it. I'm using more AI now, with Be My Eyes, Be My AI, where it's actually reading the material to me. So instead of me trying to follow a tone, get to a barcode, I'm finding AI is pretty amazing in terms of helping us now. So, and the barcode readers are very expensive, and then you've got to reload them as new products come on. And so certainly, I think they are helpful in some situations, but the question was, do I use them in my kitchen? I really don't.
How do you set oven temperatures? Do you have a talking stove?
Well, good question. So you have to label them. If you've got buttons, you generally need to get Ira to help you or a sighted person to get it so that 350 has like a bump dot on it or some kind of a tactile mark. But there are a lot of speaker friendly. So I actually do have mine where I tell the A lady, set my smart oven to 350 degrees, and I'll hear it click on, and she'll repeat it back to me so that I know she heard what I said, and it'll do it. It's amazing. Microwave does the same thing. In fact, mine's a combination microwave and oven. Big fan of technology, smart speakers and stuff like that. I know not everyone is, and there's certainly, pros and cons, but yeah, because I wouldn't know what to do if my smart speaker went out or I'd lost the internet. I don't know if I could cook. So there's pros and cons to each solution, but there are definitely ways you can do it where it does not require any electronics other than, the electricity that makes your stove work to mark your dials and stuff.
Yeah, somebody just said I have a dot on 300 and another on 400, so I know 350 is right there in the middle. So that's perfect.
Perfect, perfect.
Somebody said they came in a little late. Sorry if you already discussed this, but can you talk a little bit about grocery shopping, and what do you use to cut veggies?
Okay, there's a couple of tools out there. Um, so they have these manual choppers, and we're putting one in our store. So I'm the America's Test Kitchen of all things blind cooking, and so I bought like 20 of these manual choppers where you punch up and down on a handle, a spring-loaded handle, and it turns blades that chop through the food. It doesn't cut a lot of food, but the blades are safely inside that container, so that's a good choice. I We have things like slicing guides. So if I want my carrots to be perfectly sliced and I don't have strong knife skills, this product, it kind of looks like a fork with 12 tongs, and you put it through the potato or the carrot or whatever you want to cut in even slices, and then you guide your knife tip in between these stainless steel tines of like a fork, but they're about 3 inches long. So they're so that's one way you can cut your vegetables. I also use scissors a lot for cutting things, especially fresh herbs. And what I do is you just get a pair of kitchen scissors, anyone will do, and you get a small bowl. And like you might put your parsley in the bottom of the bowl, take off the stems and stuff you don't want. And then you just click, 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 click with the tips in the bottom. And then you check every once in a while. Is it as small as I wanted it to be? Nope. Click, 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 click more. They work beautifully.
Fantastic. Do you have any special tips for grocery shopping? Or are you more in the kitchen versus the grocery store?
Yeah, I'm not that techie when it comes out of the kitchen, but there is a company called Instacart that is if you are
Mhm.
a smartphone user with either voiceover or talkback that it works quite well with, and you also can communicate with the shopper while they're shopping. There are other uh, accessible um, apps, like for different stores, but some are more accessible and some are less accessible. So, but with AI on your smartphone, even going to a grocery store, it can tell you, or even Chat GPT can tell you. There's so many um, apps out there right now that are so helpful to us. The other thing are these Meta Ray-Ban glasses. I have a pair and I love it. Does it have its limits? Yes. My phone can do a lot more than my glasses can do. But for hands-free, I can look and it can tell me if there's a red pepper in front of me or a yellow pepper in front of me. So there's a lot of helpful technology out there that can help with grocery shopping that did not exist in the past.
That answered my next question. Somebody said, "Do you have smart glasses like the Meta Ray-Bans?" So beautiful. One more question here, and then I will unmute everybody. I saw that I believe Timothy had his hand up. So can we talk fire for a second? Is there anything like a special way to identify a small fire, or anything else that we should know?
I am not a fire expert, but I needed to face this because it is a very common fear. And so what we have done, you can get an extinguisher, but what are you going to point at? It's kind of, if you don't have any vision, how you can do your best guess and it's going to make a mess. So we do sell something that is pretty fabulous. It's called the Flame Tamer, and it's a 40-inch by 40-inch fiberglass blanket. So what it does is it zaps the oxygen. You covered the fire where you think it is, and that's a pretty big area. It's larger than most traditional stovetops. So if you suspect there's a fire, you're going to throw it on top of it, and in theory, if it's a small enough fire, it will extinguish it. If it doesn't, get out of the house and call 911.
Yeah.
Or get someone with vision to come help. But that's a way that you can independently at least take the first pass, because we can smell fire. We know what it sounds like if something's burning. You know what it smells like. So this is a real good independent thing to have in your kitchen, not near your stove, but in your kitchen, that you can have a little confidence that if something should go wrong, you can put that flame out. But the good news is most smoke alarms go off before a fire breaks out.
Yeah, I've seen those fire blankets. People are talking about them, so that's fantastic.
Mm.
I do have a few questions for Leader Dog here. Um, do experienced students have to stay 3 weeks? Is there any chance of going home earlier? So I know in the past we have had it where our return clients did go home a week earlier than our newer clients. However, we have now shortened it down to 3 week classes, so everybody does stay all 3 weeks, unless there is a reason that you have to go home early. And if you do, we'll send an instructor home with you most likely. But that is something that you can talk about during your application process with client services. And then how long is the approximate wait time from application to starting training for a first-time guide dog user? It truly depends on a lot of factors. So we do have to find the best match for you. So the best dog. And we also like to take your preferences into account. So if you say I want a male dog only or a black lab, now we have to find the right match for you, as well as take into account your preferences, which is completely fine for us to do. It just might add a little bit more time. So it's about 6 months to a year wait for a guide dog at this point. But also it depends on other factors such as your environment and what type of work the dog is going to do, just to make sure that we have that correct dog for you. But we're saying about 6 months to a year at this point. So as I get ready to unmute everybody, I will ask Deborah one more question here. And then at that point, feel free, anybody, to unmute and ask a further question or continue to put them in the chat. Somebody said it seems like an induction stove might solve some of the fire or burning issues. Those are expensive though. Do we have any kind of information about induction stoves? I know those are kind of becoming popular.
Yeah, I love an induction stove, but they are expensive if you get like the 4 burner ones okay, so for people that don't know, induction stoves are burners that you cook on. But they work by magnets. So if you have a pan and you put it down on this, the one I have is about 16 inches by 16 inches, the top of it. And I put the pan down, and when the pan touches it, if I have the power on, it'll immediately start to heat up, and it does it quicker than a traditional stove. But the beauty of it is the only thing that gets hot is the pan. I can touch the rest of that top stove top, that burner top, and it's not going to be hot, except for the part where the pan is touching. There's radiant heat because the pan itself is hot, but it makes it for a very safe experience, because if you're not touching the pan, there's no flame coming up the side or anything like that. The problem with it is, and those aren't expensive. If you get a single induction burner, I think they're like $60 now. And I've had mine for years. That's actually what I used in culinary school, because they had like a 18 burner gas top stove. But I couldn't be shoveling up with 16 other people. Where's my pan? Where's your pan? It's going to be different every time. So that's where I got introduced to the induction burners, and I'm a big fan of them. The only problem is you can only cook one pan at a time on them. It can't cook two, even if you have two small pans. It won't work. You have to only put one pan on them. So that's the limit. I also wanted to put out before Alyssa unmutes everyone, is that if you have any questions, you can write to info@theblindkitchen.com. I monitor that mailbox, and I love these kinds of questions, and I do respond to them. The other thing I wanted to say is if you want to come in and sign up for our monthly newsletter, it's free. And the tips and tricks and tools that you've been hearing me talk about, recipes, events like this, show up. It's a monthly newsletter. It's short and sweet, but a lot of people really find it helpful. So that might be another resource you can access to help up your cooking game or calm some of your cooking fears.
Fantastic. Everybody should be able to unmute now if you have a question. I know, Timothy, you had your hand up for a while, but maybe we answered.
Yeah. Thanks for the podcast plug there, Alyssa. Appreciate that.
Always, Timothy.
The past month, I've had the Meta Ray-Ban sunglasses, and they've helped me a lot in the kitchen. They've helped read labels, and it also gives me recipes. And it tells me what I'm holding and how to cook it. But what's great about it is if you need to adjust your oven, you can contact someone with Be My Eyes, and you can see exactly what you're looking at with your camera on the glasses. So it's a great tool if anybody out there was interested in them.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
I was wondering what you thought of those. So, okay, I had one more question, but I have to find my mouse when you use so many screens. How can someone with vision loss measure liquid ingredients accurately and without kind of spilling them everywhere?
So that's an excellent question. And the Blind Kitchen has an excellent solution to it. I'm going to tell you about two things. First of all, those work trays. And whenever I'm measuring wet or dry ingredients, I'm going to be working over a work tray just in case, because even people that can see perfectly knock things over by accident if they get in too much of a rush or aren't paying close enough attention. So definitely measure over a work tray. And if you wanted to, not to have to buy anything, you could use a rimmed baking sheet and just work over that. And that would also help capture any spills. But the way to do it for sure and without spilling is, I want you to picture our wet measure cups and our wet measure spoons. They're two different sets. They're traditional set of 4. But the difference between the wet measure spoons and the dry measure spoons are that the handles are shaped like a ladle. So instead of the handle being parallel to the table or the ceiling, it's going to be pointed upwards. Because how do we transfer liquids in our society? We use a soup ladle. That's going to work a lot better than something that's flatter with a straight handle. So with the wet measure spoons, we send a small spouted pitcher and a special funnel. So that way, if I'm pouring vanilla, here's what I'm going to do. Let's say I need a half a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to find the half a teaspoon, and we have a very tactile way of being able to identify the measurements. It's not reading Braille, but there's dots on it. So if there's 2 dots on, and there's part of the stainless steel handle, I know it's a half because 2 is the denominator. If it's 3 dots, it's a third. If it's 4 dots, it's a fourth. So that's all you have to do is be able to count, and then you'll know what spoon's in your hand without nesting them or doing anything like that. So I'm going to take, let's say I need a half a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to take the spoon with the 2 dots and put it inside that little cup. Because I've always said,
left parent, right parent, audio, right parent, checked, select the microphone, mic, switch to phone audio.
Did you lose me?
No, I didn't lose you. Sorry. Now that people can unmute, sometimes
Oh, got it.
some noise comes through.
So what you're going to do is you've got that little spouted pitcher. It's only about a 3/4 of an inch around and about 2 inches high. So I'm going to take that spoon that's shaped like a ladle and I'm going to set it in the cup. And I've always said, if we were to lose our vision, we should have been given an extra hand, because I never have enough hands. But now, by putting that spoon into that cup, the spoon is being held upright. And I still have 2 hands, one to see for me and one to work for me. So then I'm going to take my vanilla, carefully take off the bottle and pay attention to where I'm putting the lid down so I don't have to spend time looking for it later. And I am going to pour liquid into that cup. I am not going to touch and check. Is it full? Nope, I'm not sure. Touch and check. Those days are gone. You just pour and you purposely overflow the spoon. You don't overflow the cup, but you overflow the spoon. So that way, when I go to lift that spoon up and I don't hear anything fall out of it, I know for sure that that is a level half teaspoon of liquid, because it was just under water. It was under vanilla. And then I'll have my target bowl as close as I can get so I don't have to travel too far. And then I'll dump it out. And then I'm done. Now I know I've got the correct measurement. But now you might say, oh, you've got the waste in the bottom of that cup because you overflowed it. There's no way. There's still stuff in there. So what you do is you take the funnel that comes with it. It fits beautifully into the vanilla bottle. And then you're going to use the spouted pitcher to, instead of having that little tiny, like a fingertip opening of the vanilla bottle, they're very tiny if you get in the 2-ounce ones. Now you've got about a 3-inch target to go ahead and direct the liquid into. And you just pour it, it goes in quickly, it goes in fast, and you've got an accurate measurement without waste. The measuring cups work the same way, the wet ones. So if you need a cup of liquids, but most people have like a 2-cup measuring cup at home, a spouted pitcher. Most people don't have the little ones. So we don't send stuff that you probably already have in your home. So then you're going to also do the funnel thing for milk or oil or anything like that. One other tool that's one of our top sellers for measuring is called the Auto Measure Spout. And you put the spout into a bottle, and you want a table, it only can do a tablespoon. So you want a tablespoon of olive oil, tablespoon of vinegar, whatever you want a tablespoon of. You tip the bottle upside down over the bowl, your target bowl, and you'll hear it dispensing, and then it stops magically. There's ball bearings in it. I don't know how it works, but it does work. And then if I want a 2nd tablespoon of liquid, I'm going to turn the bottle upright, let it reset however it does it. There's no batteries, it just works. And then I'm going to turn it upside down again over the bowl. I'll hear it dispensing, and then it'll stop, even if I'm still holding it upside down. So that's a very blind-friendly tool. Again, you're measuring with using only one hand. The other hand can see where your dish is, and it's just very, very blind-friendly.
That's fantastic. I know we are getting to the end of our time. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to ask or say? We have a lot of people saying thank you in the chat, of course, fantastic.
This is Darren. Oh, go ahead.
I would like to know, how do you roll out dough evenly, like pie dough, red dough, for rolls, etc.?
Excellent question. And we have a tool for that. It is called the rolling pin. That's what it's simply called. But what it is, it's a stainless steel bar which goes over the dough. But the way that you can know that your dough is of an equal height is it has 4 wheels on each side. And the wheels, there's a small one and it goes to a larger one. The larger the wheel that's on it, the higher that bar is off of the table or the surface that you're rolling on. If I want to do something really thin, like an egg roll wrapper or something very, very thin, I'm going to take those wheels off. and I'm going to choose the very smallest one and put those back on. And when I go to put my finger to see how high that stainless steel part of it is, I'm not even able to put my fingernail hardly under that. It's going to be so low. But if I'm doing something bigger, like maybe some type of a bread dough or something like that, I'm going to have the biggest wheels on either end. They're the same height, but now I can put my entire finger underneath that thing. So whatever dough goes underneath that, it's going to have to be no higher. It could be lower, but it's not going to be any higher than those wheels. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's a very cool tool.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have a suggestion that I use that really helps me that some people may want to try. When it comes to flipping, I'm sure we've all experienced you try to flip something over and you shoot it out of your pan. Next thing you know, it's on the floor or the counter. I use double-sided spatulas. Those have really helped with fried eggs, pancakes, hamburgers, because you can grab it from both sides and flip it, and you save yourself a lot of food.
Agreed. We're back to those slope panned off ramps.
Yes,
Just swipes up and
yes.
over. We do have a stainless steel version of and we called it double spatula. And it's the reason I selected this model because there's so many out there, different kinds that they come apart. And, so I tried quite a few of them. And the reason we selected this one is, first of all, it's stainless steel. So it's easy to clean and it's easy to tell if it's still dirty or not. But the top rectangle, so the bottom rectangle is probably about 4 inches by 3 inches, and that's a rectangle on the bottom. And then the handle curves around, and then it ends being another smaller rectangle on top. Because I found that the ones that had the same size rectangle were great for getting under, were great for then you just have to gently squeeze the handle. So now the top part's pressing. So now it's more like a tong is what you're using. And you go
Right.
to flip it over, because it's the same size as the other side, it's kind of hard to get it off. It's a lot easier to pick it up. But if you have that, since we have the smaller rectangle, it's going to be a little bit easier to get it back inside the pan without, because you don't have such a big obstacle to move around to put it down. But I'm glad you brought that up. That is an excellent tool. You're exactly right.
Okay, everybody. I know everyone's got questions. Everything we could stay here for hours, but it is 4 o'clock, so I do want to be conscious of everyone's time. I know for sure that Deborah would have no problem answering any questions that you guys have. I did put her contact as far as the info at theblindkitchen.com on our chat. But I'm assuming you have a website as well if you want to let everyone know what that is.
Sure, it's theblindkitchen.com. And don't go to Blind Kitchen. Put the word because Blind Kitchen is a cooking show in Boston where they blindfold people that can see perfectly well to compete against each other. That's not me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deborah, for everything. I just wanted to let everybody know that you can join us for our next collaboration event. I believe it is March 26th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everybody in cold areas, stay warm until then. Everybody in warm areas, send your heat up here to Michigan. So thank you guys all and have a fantastic day, okay?
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.